the next panel discussion, ladies and gentlemen. It's titled Cloud First, Leveraging the Power of Cloud Computing. In this, our panelists will discuss on cloud computing that offers numerous benefits for banks, from increased efficiency and scalability to cost savings. This panel will discuss the different cloud deployment models, security considerations, and how banks can leverage the cloud to enhance their operations. The discussion points include cloud migration strategies for financial institutions, security considerations in a cloud environment, and leveraging the cloud to drive innovation and business growth. For the panel discussion, I would like to invite Mr. Ravikiran Mankikar, CMD, RKM Consultants, who is also the moderator for this session. Our panelists are Mr. Onil Nunes, CIO, Bassein Catholic Cooperative Bank, Mr. Dhrumil Dalal, Head IT, Bharat Banking, Axis Bank, Mr. Vishram Dixit, CEO, NAMCO Bank, Nashik, and Mr. Mahesh Dharmadhikari, CISO, Kalyan Janata Sahakari Bank. Please welcome all of them with a huge round of applause, full of energy, so that they don't make us feel asleep.
I welcome the co-panelists for this discussion, and I think we'll have quite informative session today because this is one of the topics which is, I think, quite contemporary and in the minds of most of the bankers. When we talk of cloud, are we really talking of hawe mein baat karne ka, or are we talking of ground realities? Coming from the cooperative sector, there is a strong feeling that we should be on premise. And many banks still are hesitant to think of the options which are available on the cloud. So today's discussion, I think, will veer out because somewhere, personally, I feel cloud is a more viable option where you get a lot of opportunities, a lot of benefits, both in terms of managing the infrastructure as well as managing your applications, plus less headache from the resource perspective. I mean, this I would like to hear from all the panelists. So without much ado, I will start.
Bassein Catholic Cooperative Bank is already a user of cloud. So we probably were one of the first cooperative banks to jump into that race last year when RBI released the draft circular for cloud adoption. In fact, our vendor, Oracle FlexCube, they themselves were not ready with their product being certified for Oracle Cloud. So we actually had to start from that point, get the product certified on cloud. And we didn't go with the production environment on cloud, but right now we have our production DR deployed on cloud and it's working fine. Definitely the area where we looked at when we started thinking about cloud was obviously cost saving. Cost saving was one of the major part. Reliability, scalability, agility, and ease of deployment. These were some of the areas which we were looking at while cloud deployment. I mean, we had seen the challenges of deploying the physical environment in our data center for our production. And when we actually did the DR part, it was much faster, easier, because you could easily deploy VMs, the OS ready, even the platforms were ready. All we had to do was deploy the applications and configure them. And I think it has been a very successful story for us till now. Thanks.
And I think I like those three words, agility and resilience, and more important, coping up with the scalability aspect. Dhrumilji, you come from a private bank.
Yes.
And the challenges which we as a cooperative sector face may not be faced by a private bank. I mean, you may be facing different other challenges. So in your perspective, how do you think cloud adoption has helped your bank?
So As far as the cloud adoption is concerned, Axis Bank is already on the cloud, and we use multi-cloud strategy. So we are on Azure, we are on AWS as well, and we to an extent we use GCP as well, right? Uh, I will echo with what Onil mentioned, that agility and scalability, reliability is what has helped us on cloud as compared to doing anything on-prem. And if we were to use some of the platform native features, so if we are on AWS using platform as a service capabilities on AWS or on Azure, that actually helps us not only in terms of quicker deployments, agility as we would want to quickly deploy and make the functionality live. Okay, it also helps in terms of scalability. So that in my mind is the game changer. I'm not so sure about if it's economical. What we have at least observed is from my previous experiences as well. Uh, the moment you go and play the OPEX game, okay, it becomes a bit difficult. I mean, if you are an established business and you know that you have a horizon in place, how the business is going to grow and whatnot, then it makes sense to have a hybrid strategy, is what my understanding is.
I think
Okay.
from an operational management perspective, it is more convenient.
Absolutely, yes.
From
Absolutely,
a financial,
yes.
maybe it is on par with on-prem kind of a thing.
Maybe it depends on what stage of evolution you are on. So if you are a small startup or a small bank looking to grow, and if you say, okay, fine, let me just provision it now and we will move forward, versus if you are at a stage and you are saying, okay, fine, I see a plateau down the road, then probably cloud may not be the right choice. So depending on in which cycle you are in the evolution, what your business model is,
Right.
the strategy would change.
Perfect. Now, Vishramji, I'd like to take this forward with you because one of the points with Dhrumilji mentioned was, they are sort of dependent on the infra for some of their applications. And your bank uses Finacle. And Finacle, as far as I know, so far has been dependent on the power series of these servers, which are at present, at least to the knowledge which I have, are not so much available on cloud as far as the other infrastructure is concerned. So, how would you look at, suppose you decide to go for cloud for your core banking?
Yes. Presently, we have our own DR site. We have our own data center, fully equipped. And definitely, NAMCO has a plan every 3 years to relook at those infrastructure. So while taking this decision to take this new investment into cloud base would be not easy. It will have to take care of the cost, first of all. And as you said that the cost could be equal, I see that the cost is more. The cloud cost is more. So unless and until the cost factor for the cooperative banks in a SaaS model, if it is workable, then and then only the further decision would be taken. So if the cost of my 5 TB frame is installation today and the same to be obtained on DR side is a dearer. I mean cloud side is a dearer. It is not cost beneficial. So presently, when all those banks, or though we have their own centers, installations, data center as well as DR sites, for them it is very difficult decision to go for cloud banking at present because of the cost initiative. Otherwise also, in some of the cases, as you said, that Finacle is a very good platform for software as a solution, different than the CBS. For the working solutions, say loan origination, then quick account opening facilitation, then some other customer services that may come across that may go on SaaS. And that we are doing. For quick account opening, we are using software as a solution, and that's working fine. It has already started to be announced to the customer because we are on now doing it at our own, experimenting on our staff. Once it gets through, it will be open to customers.
Okay.
So it is not a good decision for banks who have their own setup right now for all equipped data center. Not a correct decision, because it is cost beneficially, the cost is more than whatever cost we will incur for ourselves in the installation processes.
I'll come to your point regarding software as a solution a bit later on, because there also I feel certain challenges are there. But in the meantime, महेश जी आपसे मैं पूछना चाहूँगा, आप सीसो रहे हैं कल्याण जनता बैंक में, तो क्लाउड में अभी इसके पहले के सेशन में दो चीज़ें बात हुई थी, कंप्लायंसेस के बारे में और साइबर सिक्योरिटी रिस्क बारे में. तो आपके अनुभव से क्लाउड पे कोई रिस्क है क्या, या क्लाउड पे कुछ ज्यादा सावधानी बरतनी पड़ती है?
Of course, security measure is the most concern if you go for cloud, because nowadays, what you said earlier, that means people are hesitating to go on cloud because of that security reason only. But I am saying nowadays, if you see, many things are there. That means PAM is there, identification management is there. So such type of compliance are there, multi-factor authentications are there. If you use and if you put such type of controls while doing or when implementing the security, you can think on to go on cloud. But people that means what the incidents we heard or we always hearing that data breach and some data leakage, everything is there. But if you put the controls of all these things and if you give us limited access, privilege access, if you limited that, then I don't think there is any problem to go on cloud. So my point of view, if people are, that means a bank who already far from these metro places, that means in rural places, they don't have technical expertise with them. They don't have what I'm saying regarding compliance, RBI regulator compliances problems are there. They can think to go on cloud because cloud provider is also much matured. They are also giving us that type of services, and it is up to you only how you are implementing your controls and securities for implementing these clouds. So my point of view, it's good if we move on cloud by taking these security measures and all the things.
Okay. Now, when we speak of cloud and cloud adoption, there are typically three types of cloud adoption which are normally practiced. One is co-location, where we set up the infra at the service provider's place. Second is where we use their services, which is the hosted model. And the third, which is gaining popularity in the sector, is the SaaS model, where software as a service, where we have a service provider providing. Now, again, coming back to this problem, and especially relating to the master direction on outsourcing of IT activities. See, typically what Reserve Bank expects that the vendor should, demarcate each bank and then provide those kind of security aspects for each bank as per their needs. Now, typically, my understanding is when a bank subscribes to cloud services, they assume a lot of things. They think, I saw this in one bank that they thought that going to XYZ, they also get their DR. Without realizing that unless they subscribe to DR, they don't get DR. Or unless you subscribe to SOC services, you don't get SOC services. So somewhere when we talk of this IT outsourcing, where does SLAs and quantification of your services play a role? I think I'll leave it open to any of the panelists. You can.
See, of course. See, before, if we are thinking to go on cloud, SLA in India is the most important part. Okay, so what, as you said, April 10th, 2023, what the RBI circular just issued, and that they mention each and everything, every part for this outsourced vendor. And if you just consider all that SA, if you complied as per that things, I don't think we'll have much more problems, because they mention that is multi vendor cloud. That means if one cloud fails to other, transition clause are there. Too many things are there. That means if you want to adopt that things only, and so SLA and what you said, TAT, that means turnaround time. So it is also applicable to them. They have BCP, DR point, because if we think to go on cloud, they must have such type of thing. That means BCP, DR, everything is there. So it is very easy to secure, but they should. That means we must have some review and monitoring 24/7 on that cloud. So I think in that SLA, if we mention each and everything, and if we monitor correctly, then I don't find any problems there.
Onil, one question which comes to my mind here is when we talk of this outsourced activity, and especially now from the DPDP Act and the other acts which are coming in place, the onus eventually lies on the bank for compliance. And somewhere, if at the time when the contract was signed, these aspects were not considered in the SLA, and when we go to the vendor again and say that, the SLA has to be amended, and then he asks for a hike in the charges, how would a bank or how should a bank look at these kind of situations?
So it's a very tricky question. First of all, any organization, when especially bank, if they are looking at adoption of cloud, they should be absolutely clear on what is their strategy. If it is going to be an issue from the compliance perspective or the cost perspective, like sir said, cloud is not cheap. Let me tell you, you can make it cheap. There are ways of making things happen the way. Also from the compliance perspective, there are ways to make things fall in place. In our case, for example, when we were outsourcing our DR into a cloud, public cloud, it took us about 4 months to make that vendor agree to a clause in our contract saying they will follow and fulfill regulatory compliance. Okay.
I think this is a very important part. So anyone going for cloud should, really take this as an example.
Yeah. It was very tough to get this through because the principal companies normally don't deviate from their standard contracts.
Clauses.
Okay. They didn't put in the contract, they didn't put specifically RBI, but they said, okay, we will comply to regulatory compliance requirements. So, here's the thing, when we are getting into any sort of outsourcing services, you should be absolutely clear that if I'm going to put my PCI data or a PII data on cloud, what are the requirements of compliance? How do I cover them in my contract? Should be well thought even before you think of getting into such contracts.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what is very critical.
Dhrumil, you face any compliance challenges?
Yes, I mean, definitely yes. But I would first like to respond on that SLA part that you mentioned. See, when we take our workloads on cloud, if we were to co-locate and have our own infra, manage our own infra, the vendor is not going to provide any SLAs around it. However, if you subscribe to platform as a service where you say that, okay, fine, I want an instance of, let's say, a SQL server with 2500 TPS per second, okay, then those TPSs are monitored and the vendors or the OEMs are supposed to provide you with the report. So I believe that if, and this is also a very crucial thing in making a decision, right? What you are expecting when you want to go to cloud is something that needs to be clearly understood as we go ahead. Okay, I mean, your reasons may be X, Y, Z to go on the cloud, but if it's not planned, experts are not roped in, and you're not going to get those desired results. So that's the most important part of it.
I think that's a very valid point which you have brought out. And Vishramji, I'd like your opinion. Enforceability of the SLA. This is a very crucial part. Onilji also mentioned about this, that we have to have those clauses in that SLA. But tomorrow going forward, I mean, like I'll give you one simple expectation which Reserve Bank puts forth. That suppose your service provider is having an incident of any sort, which necessarily has not impacted your bank.
It is, right.
But he's bound to inform you.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think this is followed in many cases. So though they have been impacted, they don't voluntarily come out and disclose to their participating clients that, they were breached or they had any, not necessarily breach, but maybe an infra incident or whatever. So when you have to enforce your SLA and then levy penalties, what challenges you foresee?
Yeah, this is a big challenge that for any SLA, this can be a problem. But however, in recent inspections of Reserve Bank of India, they have suggested that you should have inspection of the service provider.
That is due diligence.
That is due diligence, and it is on concurrence basis. not once done while signing the activities. And that could save this problem. Because unless and until somebody does not report it, does not mean that banker is not given choice to inspect and take the situation under control. Bank should do. Because in any cases, the accountability cannot be passed on, though it is a part of service level agreement. Accountability shall remain on the heads of the bank.
See, as you said right now, that SLA challenge, we have one challenge. That means we co-located our data DC and DR. Now we ask vendor, if any incident happen at your end, that means though we co-located, but you are managing other bank server also. And if anything happen at your end, at your vendor, then you please inform us within 2 to 6 hours. But he's not immediately ready to do all these things. He said, no, if anything happens, then we'll first take care of our vendors, not yours. So these are the things. This is the challenge which we are facing. Like this is happening.
So, I mean, this is quite pertinent. So, like what Onilji also mentioned, when we are drafting the SLA, we have to not just look at what is we are thinking of today, but also in terms of what could happen and be ready for that. Another challenge which I foresee is that with the evolution in the technology, okay, technology keeps on changing. Maybe they come out with new version changes. Maybe some version does not work with the existing platform. They have to change the platform. So the readiness to change and adapt to the changing technologies, how would you look at it, sir?
So, cloud definitely has that advantage. I mean, every time there are new services, especially in the SaaS model. In SaaS model, all these updates, changes are taken care by the vendor itself. But if you are looking at IaaS model where you have deployed your services, of course, you will face the same challenge that you would face normally on your data center or your co-location services. So cloud does provide that advantage when it comes to platform as a service or a SaaS as a service. So adopting new technology typically becomes much simpler in that case. But of course, that would also, like our sir said, Vikram sir said, uh, when we are looking at a production environment in cloud, which is typically going to operate for 24/7, then definitely it's not an economical one. Okay, so that is where you have to decide what platform you should get into. So yes, latest technology adoption would depend on those decisions as to what service you are taking up over there.
Now, again, when we mention about what is to be taken on cloud, okay, that's another decision which is quite critical. Vishramji was quite candid in saying, "I'll be reluctant to take my crown jewels on the cloud." So somewhere, that also needs to be balanced, because when we go for the SaaS model, everything is there. Okay, but when we have the option of having an hybrid model, okay, something which is on-prem, something which can be taken on cloud, or vice versa. And, like I have seen a couple of banks having their DC on cloud and DR on-prem.
That's wrong.
Yeah.
That's a very wrong thing, because the moment you start running your operations on cloud 24/7, uh, probably in non-working hours you might save some consumption. See, cloud will charge you either per minute, per hour, or per day, depending on the type of cloud. In our case, we have our DR on cloud, and well, that's a little bit of our trade secret how we are doing. But let me tell you, my current cost of running DR is less than 1/10 of what I was doing earlier. So that's why I said you have to be very sure what you want to do on cloud and how you would manage it. If any bank wants to go on cloud, you have to ensure you have a governance model for cloud, how you would manage the consumption at that place. Else you will end up overspending on cloud. It's very tricky how you do it.
I think this is a very key takeaway.
Yes.
That we absolutely need to define how we are going to use the cloud, and more important, what are going to be the components which are going to be used. Axis Bank was one of the pioneers into cloud.
Yes, that is right.
Okay, and maybe at the time when Axis Bank went into cloud, banking was a bit different. Today, the banking scenario has changed. I think 360 degrees would be a fair statement. Now, when banking changes and there is so much focus which is today happening on the digital side, okay, and I mean not just the digital payments, but we'll have digital lendings, we'll have corresponding accounts and all that. So, how would you cope up with this changing scenario of banking and then adopting cloud towards fulfilling of those business requirements?
Actually, it's I would say it's the other way around. The new innovations that are coming out in the banking segment, the new products that are coming out, they're born in cloud. They don't design for native traditional data centers. They design keeping cloud in mind, and that's how the design goes forward. So, in my understanding, it's like the new innovations that are taking place or the new POC that you want to carry out, cloud would be the best candidate for that. I mean, you imagine trying to provision a server only to carry out a POC, let's say, for an example, image recognition or face matching technology, right? You're not going to get that. You're going to spend a few months getting a server, configuring it, installing, and start working to make it productive. Versus you go to cloud, there are native platform services available on all major cloud providers who provide this, let's say, image matching service or face recognition out of the box.
Right.
Right. So if you want to do something, that obviously that would be the first choice.
I mean, that is giving a new perspective, which I would like Vishramji to say that are we looking at a branchless bank where everything would be on cloud and then we connect remotely?
Yeah. Today it may be expensive, but on the other side also the service providers on cloud will also think of this feedback that this is costlier. So they will also come with the different solutions. Then banker will have a chance that what can be kept as their own infrastructure and what services can be kept on cloud. Say, as I mentioned earlier about the account opening process. See, account opening process, initial stages, likewise the filling of the form and then taking all the verifications. If you want to automate, these services, including the infrastructure, can be put on SaaS. There, the hardware as well as the software solution can be used of the same company or the different companies. This will make sense. Because in all cases, in furtherance, your cost of operation is going to be reduced further. So the choice for the selection of cloud is very important for every bank. And as a CEO, what is required for me is how the solution is going to give me the business, the scalability I mean, and simultaneously whether it is giving better service in the market. So these two solutions, if at all are positive, even NAMCO is positive for going on cloud.
Great. Now, one aspect which Maheshji, I would like you to look at. Okay, we just spoke of the way banking is changing, and we are going more on the digital way. And we also spoke of the need for security. Now, security would be at three levels. I would one at the application level, one at the infrastructure level, and one at the user level. Okay. Now, when we look at cloud as a service, and we are using the cloud services for various of our activities, would you foresee any security challenges coming in? I mean, they will say that we have done everything what is required. We are compliant. But with the rise, unlike today, when it is on-prem, we have the satisfaction it is in front of me. But when we are on cloud, that visibility is not there. Physical visibility is not there. So then, would that give a discomfort to us?
Yes, there is some little bit discomfort. I agreed with all these things. But as I earlier said, review and monitoring, that thing only we can do on regular basis. Rest we cannot do because as we think just to manage service and everything, then also we have such type of challenges are there. But I have one suggestion. I don't know whether it will come ahead. I don't know. But as if RBI is taking something initiative in that, that means I'm telling as IFTAS, that means RBI subsidiary IFTAS. IFTAS is giving giving services for this NEFT and RTGS on cloud. So that means bank is without hesitating going to that, accepting that things only. And if RBI come forward and gives us such type of solution on cloud to our banks, then I think we can think over to go on cloud, because already as they are regulator, they can definitely think on cloud, and they will definitely take care of our securities. There we can mitigate such type of risk. But as you said, there is always a discomfort that we sit here, our vendors are sitting there. It is little bit difficult to manage, because they said we implemented. That's why I said everyday review and monitoring is the only solution that we have to check, and for compliance part of
You
view.
wanted to say
Yeah,
something?
I would want to add to what Mahesh said. See, the notion that server is not in front of me, so I don't know whether it is secured or not. At least I find that misplaced. A hardened server, a hardened machine with all ports locked, everything on cloud is much more secured as compared to port 22 open on my on-prem, where we have bunch of listener processes running on the server. So at least I believe that a proper hardening of the machine, followed by proper SOC services that Mahesh was mentioning, is what would be key for security, rather than a misplaced notion that cloud is insecure. And if RBI subsidiary is providing services on cloud, I don't think.
I
too much
think as a regulator, they may be reluctant to get involved in operational aspects, because the way I understand, they're looking at the umbrella organization to provide these kind of services to banks. So anyway, we'll leave that to the regulators. We'll not get into that discussion. But yes, there. I mean, what you say is absolutely right. I mean, if we take due precautions, and if it is appropriately audited, and those audit compliances are in place, I think we should be rest assured that on-prem as well as cloud would be equally safe or equally unsafe. I mean, the way you look at it. Okay. So it's just a matter of how, I mean, like, you get vaccinated, but still you take precautions.
Our own infrastructure is also unsafe.
That's what
It
I'm
doesn't
saying.
mean that it is safe because it is in our hand.
Onil, how would you look at the changing scenarios? I mean, you just mentioned that you would prefer the cloud option. But going forward, as a banking sector, okay, and especially in terms of the way the banking environment is changing, okay, do you think cloud adoption would be the basis for assisting banks into, leveraging or taking quick decisions into innovative banking?
If regulators allow with full flexibility, I would say I would put my DC and DR both on cloud, provided also they are cost effective. Of course, with more and more cloud services coming, they are actually become affordable. The reason being, today one of the most critical activities, if we have data center and a DR on co-location, is the DR drill. DR drill, high availability, scalability. This is where cloud can add huge value. So, like in the beginning, you said about availability of redundant zone in cloud, which you can additionally subscribe. If those services enabled between DC and DR, if both are on cloud, your DR deal is just like you switch over.
Absolutely.
Okay, and these are those advantages which cloud have, but regulatory issues, and because I'll tell you one of the biggest challenge. IDRBT and IFTAS for NPCI connectivity, they don't let you have their network on public, connected to public directly. Now, if you have your entire infrastructure on cloud, how would you take those services?
Absolutely.
Okay, we had to do something different to get that happen. There is a way to do that, but you cannot actually have everything 100% on cloud. But definitely there are certain services, if RBI allows, there is huge advantage, especially the redundancy, scalability. I can just increase my server powers whenever required in festive season, whatever. So those flexibilities which are available on cloud will definitely add advantage.
Great. Now, from a business perspective, I mean, Vishramji, you're a CEO. Okay. And as part of managing a bank, we also need to have the appropriate skill sets and appropriate resources for managing the setup. Okay. Do you think adopting on cloud will help in mitigating that issues which banks face?
Presently, no. Because once the accountability part, even though it has been taken to cloud, if remaining with the organization, though that organization doesn't have fullest access of the infrastructure within its fold, even then, the accountability remains with the bank. So those resources which are required to be in place for own infrastructure will have to be in place for surveillances. So the challenge is not completely taken away. It's only the thing is regular maintenance of those hardwares, softwares could be some other's job. But the responsibility part and the surveillance part has to be taken by the bank. So resources for the required competence would remain.
They say that for any technology, when we look at the value derived out of it, you have to do it the right way and you have to do the right things. And
Right.
then you have to have someone understanding both. And
Correct.
that knowledge has to be within the bank.
Sure.
So even if we outsource it, whether he's doing it the right way
Yes.
or the right things, that we
Yes.
should know.
Yes.
I mean, we should not be totally dependent on the vendor to tell us what he's doing.
Correct.
So this is another key takeaway which the bank should keep in mind, that don't simply rely on your service provider. Now, when we spoke of the infrastructure and we spoke of cloud and we spoke of the bank as a user, there is one great intermediary who is in between, which is the networking part. And this, I think, is one of the weakest links which banks will face.
True.
Because though the infrastructure is there, though the users have the capability to connect, if the networking infrastructure, and in some parts of the country, that is still a lot to do as far as the networking is concerned.
Correct. Even some of the branches of NAMCO, say 2-3 branches, which are in absolute remote area, every month we have 2-3 days where the lights are off and whole systems are down. So they have to come to Nashik in the evening, do all data entry and complete the process. So this still, at last, this problem would remain when the network problem arises. Yes.
So this is another thing which we have to keep in mind. Though a cloud service or an on-premise service could be viable for running the core systems, but still we need to have adequate networking available from whatever service provider for whatever media, whether it is broadband VPN or MPLS or lease line or whatever, but there has to be some arrangement done.
As earlier Onil said that suppose if you want to, there should be a strategy before going to cloud. That means if we are going to open any branches in the rural area, then is there any connectivity available or not? Can we go or not? Something like this we have to think, and then only we have to move on cloud. Otherwise, it is little bit difficult.
Not for new, whatever opened earlier, they cannot be closed down. So they will remain at large the problem for your organization.
Dhrumilji, one terminology I learned from the private banks is feet on street. Okay.
Yes.
And the private banks have a lot of feet on street as compared to the cooperative, because that concept is not so popular in the cooperative sector.
Correct.
And when these guys who are on the street, okay, they also need access to the systems which could be on-prem or which could be on cloud. So how would you manage that for both the application availability as well as ensuring that they are securely accessed?
Okay. So, couple of things here. For feet on the street, regardless of whether your servers and infrastructures are hosted on your private data centers or on the cloud, if you are in the remote area, it really won't matter. If you are in a weak network zone, the services won't be available. The solution to that would be store and forward technology that we use. In some of the mobile applications where we
Absolutely.
store the work that is done. Not everything can utilize this pattern. If I have to do an instant eKYC of a customer, or if I have to do a bureau check, if the network is down, we can't do it. Okay. But in case if he's going out for field investigation and capturing certain data, that definitely can be captured in an offline mode, stored in a secured way, and then transmitted back to the server as the network is available. Obviously, all these applications are available in a container in the mobile phone. It's going to be an MDM solution sitting on your phone through which this application will be available. It's not going to be open access for everybody.
MDM is something which is again alien to the cooperative sector. Again, because of the
True.
costs.
Yes,
I mean, not from the functionality point of view, because it's a very expensive proposition.
absolutely, agreed.
So, before we wind up and we leave the forum for questions, can we have any closing statements? I mean, what would you personally, as a takeaway to the audience, what would you suggest? Onil.
So, cloud does have its advantages and disadvantages. All I would say in one line is it has to be a very smart decision on adopting cloud based on your requirements, and proper assessment has to be done for compliance, cost, and security.
Great. Dhrumil ji.
Again, I would say it's a double-edged sword. If we were to venture in cloud, let us list down the objectives that we are trying to achieve with a proper execution plan, and then tracking that plan on maybe monthly basis or whenever we would want to track it. Otherwise, it's going to be a wrong decision, and it's not going to pay off.
Vishram ji.
Presently, we may not be using this option, but this option cannot be ruled out. The business cannot have the decision making that once no is always no. No, nothing like that. So whenever these services which are required to be put on cloud, cost benefit and scalability of the particular product or the particular business venture would take place in foremost decision making activity. Then if it is permitting us, we will go for cloud. If it is not permitting, retain those services and infrastructure with you. So decision making is very important for which activity you will go for cloud or you will not go for cloud.
Mahesh ji.
My point of view, if you want to go on cloud, then of course strategy is the first thing that we have to think on that. Another thing is that security measures is the important thing. Regular audit, reviewing and monitoring of that cloud vendor, whatever services we want to have or we require, that we have to check with the cloud vendor on regular basis. Then only just think on go on cloud for this non-critical application initially. And after, if you find everything is okay, 1, 2, 3 years, considering all these connectivity and everything issues, then only you can go on cloud. Otherwise, for non-critical application, as Mr. What is your name? Dhrumil said that that means for UAT testing, for sandbox testing, cloud is the always best options. And if you find everything, then you think on that.
Any questions from the audience? Yes, please. Can someone share the mic there?
There.
Hello. Yeah. This is actually not a question. This is a supplement to whatever discussions you had. I think it's a very nice panel. My point is that the decision for going to cloud, this is of course on the banks, depending on the banks. But as per RBI, the moment you are outsourcing, the third-party risk management, which is called vendor risk management, goes parallel. In fact, that whatever discussions are coming out, that how to monitor or how to visualize on that vendor is performing well. This TPRM, this third-party risk management, has to be done properly because only because of based on that TPRM, you can have the risk profile of the vendor, whether it is a high risk or it is a medium risk or it is a smaller lower risk, and this has to be periodic based on the framework or whatever it is has been designed as per the bank's policy. This vendor risk assessment has to be done because this profiling until you get throughout year, the moment it is a high profile, the frequency of this survey has to be in a more frequent manner. And accordingly, the SLA has to be further designed that, okay, it is to be more stringent or something. So I think it can be only mitigated with TPRM kind of a scenario and with through a proper outsourcing of any vendor you can do it, like Big Fours are there or any others. So that's my submission on this.
Yeah, point well taken. So what sir was saying is that there has to be a proper risk assessment mechanism in place, which has to be periodically reviewed to ensure that whatever services are availed, the bank is not deprived of those services, and the vendor has the capability to service the bank for all its requirements.
And this has to be at the vendor side.
Yeah, at the business side.
Sir, but in RBI's April 10th, 2023 circular, as I said, everything they have mentioned like this, vendor risk assessment, due diligence, everything is there. That's why I referred. If you go through this, all these things, I think it's good.
Yeah, someone that side had something to say.
Hello, sir. As this cloud services is having different options, likewise time basis, day basis, hourly basis, or as and when required basis. So I had one question regarding that. That as panelists are using these cloud services, so does this really satisfy our purpose of keeping the our DR side on cloud? For in the case of BCP scenario, if the cloud services is used for as and when type.
I'll take that question. So we currently have production DR of our core banking system on cloud. We have also done a full-fledged DR activity as well. Okay. All our services, we in fact also did transactions through online on the DR activity, and then we did a sync back. It was absolutely smooth and fine. In fact, we were able to use certain replication features available on cloud to our advantage to make it even more smoother. So, plus what advantage we got is, since we are having credits available on cloud, we have also created a parallel setup of the production, a second near DR kind of a thing on cloud itself, and are syncing a second instance of our data over there on the same cloud. So, and still our costing is still lower because we use that scale up and scale down capability of cloud. So what we have done is we have completely scaled down entire environment to bare minimum. So the consumption is absolutely negligible. And that's how we have been able to run cloud with a near DR within that cloud. Okay, at less than 1/10 of our cost what we were paying earlier. It does work out. There has to be, as I said earlier, you have to have a proper governance model, proper design. The architecture has to be well thought. Things will work out fine. It has to be really done properly.
So this means the cloud services is up and running for 24/7 itself only. Only the optimization is the workout for maintaining the low cost?
No,
Or,
it depends upon what you're putting on cloud. Now, there will be 2-3 models, one which you're having on-prem and one which is on cloud. So the one which is on cloud, if it is DR, you could have only the data being replicated, which is on an active mode. The applications and all could be on passive mode.
That's the trick. You said it right.
Yeah.
You keep your databases full-fledged replicating. Even suppose you have 10 core or 20 cores running on your DC, the real production environment. On your cloud, your database could be just running on 2 or 3 cores. That's enough for replication to happen. You don't need all those 20 cores running in cloud. So your cost there itself on license, your hardware requirement, everything just slashes down.
See, here whatever
It's very tricky.
Here whatever we are discussing is not for the SaaS model. Because under the SaaS model, everything is done by the service provider. Here, whatever discussion is taking place now is where the bank takes up the cloud services. Okay, so if a bank is taking something on a SaaS model where they're paying the software vendor, then these kind of things won't be materialistic.
We are using infrastructure as a service. So we are able to control our consumption and we are able to control what we need to scale up, what we need to scale down. In SaaS, you can't do that.
Thanks.
Any other questions? I think we had quite an informative session, and I thank my panelists for giving such wonderful insights, which I think a lot of key takeaways to all the participants. Thank you very much. Thank you, B2B, for inviting us for this panel.
Thank you, panelists, for the insightful panel discussion. I would now request Ravikiran sir to present a memento to Mr. Onil Nunes, CIO, Bassein Catholic Cooperative Bank. To Mr. Dhrumil Dalal, Head IT, Bharat Banking, Axis Bank. To Mr. Vishram Dixit, CEO, NAMCO Bank, Nashik. To Mr. Mahesh Dharmadhikari, CISO, Kalyan, Janata, Sahakari Bank. I now request Mr. Virendra to facilitate Mr. Ravikiran Mankikar, CMD, RKM Consultants. Thank you, everyone.